One thing, I'm always really bad at that. I'll give it away and then I'll say something and ruin the whole thing. So I am going to be recording these talks. We do that with each of the seniors. Sometimes the senior wants a copy of it for themselves. Sometimes they want to share it with, friends and family who can't make it. So just so you know, we do record these. All right. Seriously, this time, Mary, now you can take it away.
Thank you, Prof. Seals. Well, thank you everyone for coming, and I appreciate your support very much. And I want to start just everybody, just imagine your life as a timeline for me, and imagine that timeline as a piece of thread, okay? It might be short, might be long. And imagine that that thread is woven out through a blanket or a tapestry of some sort, and it touches all these other hundreds or thousands of other pieces of thread. Well, in the same way, your life touches those around you. You may just be passing by someone on the sidewalk and you smile at them, you're influencing their day. So, this series that I'm presenting tonight is called Now, and it has to do with the value and the significance of time and the fact that what we do with our time, who we spend it with, what we are doing, it influences not only who we are, but it influences who others are and who they may even become. So, having said that, let me screen share here so I can give you a visual and I'll talk about my process. Okay, everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, like I said, this is called Now, and I'll just kind of scroll through these as I'm talking. So, first of all, where this series roots from is um, from a class I took last year. If anyone doesn't know, I'm a transfer student here at Olivet. I came in last year as a junior after getting my associate's degree at my community college back home. And I've always wanted to come here to Olivet. And right before I came, I switched my major. I felt God calling me to do so. And I was terrified because I knew He wanted me to do art, but I didn't know what in the world I was doing. And one of my first projects was in Design Studio, and that's what I based the project off of was God's perfect timing, because I finally got to Olivet and I saw Him moving everywhere. And that project was kind of a collage image that represented my school, my community college. This is what it ended up transforming to was this photo in my series called Wait. And it's all those images. My show is a different process, but um, the composition is pretty close to what that project was. And I use that not only to create this image, but kind of be an overall view of what this whole series is about with time. Um, so my process, let me get down to the bottom here. I have somewhere between 5 and 12 images in each photo, and this one is from the photo Sit Down. And for each photo, I do a line drawing and I block colors throughout them. So my Olivet folk may notice some of these places. I've got Ludwig, Starbucks, outside on the quad, the Perry Center, Ludwig downstairs. And these were just different places I found myself sitting in. So I collaged these. I adjusted the opacity and you adjust the opacity so you can see through all of it, and it ends up becoming this bigger idea of all these times and places and the people in those times and places surrounding you. And as each picture is laid on top of another, the whole thing changes. So that's again to describe how one person can change the course of someone else's future, or whatever that may be. So that's kind of the overall view of it. I'd like it to open it up to any questions or comments or anything, and I'll kind of keep it here on this PowerPoint in case anyone's got questions about my pictures.
Which one's your favorite, Mary? First of all, good job, Mary. I'm proud of you. We're proud of you. Hoot hoot for Mary. Which one's your favorite, Mary?
Thanks, Dad. The one I'm on right now, it's a learning process, is my favorite. This one depicts 5 of my 6 classes that I took last semester. And all of my professors and the classes that I've taken have had a big impact on who I am and who God's created me to be. And to me, this one speaks that louder than any of the others.
How long do you think it would take for you to create one of these images or one of these creations?
It depends on how many images are in it, because some have 5 and some have 12 or in between. So it also depends on the complexity of it. So for example, this bottom one here, I don't know if you guys can see where my mouse is or not. I don't know what all it shares.
Yep,
But the bottom right, downstairs Letty, it didn't take me quite as long, maybe a few hours, whereas the one in Perry Center took forever because there's a lot more detail in it. So it depends on the complexity. It depends on if people keep moving while you're trying to draw them. But I don't know, some are faster than others. And I think it also depends on how much time I specifically want to take in creating it, because sometimes I was purposefully more precise than others. Sometimes I just wanted to show that, this chair is all wonky and everything, but you can tell it's a chair and that's all that counts. So it just kind of depends.
Which one do you think captures your style the best? Which one do you think is the most depictive of you?
Well, depicted of me, I could comically answer this one because they're all photos of me. I would, that's a hard question. I think it's difficult for me to choose one because all of them are the same process. Maybe this one more than the others. This rooted from one of my first projects before I even came to Olivet, which was my Bible journal. I know some of you know about that. And that came from my grandpa telling me he reads the Bible in color. And I took that literally and drew and colored on the pages of a Bible. And this one kind of describes that. So I guess in a sense, this one would represent that best.
I have 2 questions. Well, Grace has a question. She wants to know what opacity is.
So do you know what transparency means?
Yeah.
That's what opacity means, basically.
Okay, my second question is, did you learn anything about yourself through this process?
Yes. So Prof. Kozik can back me up on this. I came in at the beginning of last fall before I began this, and I thought I knew what I wanted to do, and I had like 6 mediums that I planned on doing for this project. And she said, no, you need to pick one. So I learned that I don't need to do everything at once. And it's okay to back up and take your time and really focus in and dive deeper in one area. And the second thing I learned is honestly what the whole concept is about, the value of time. I don't think I learned anything new, but I came to appreciate that very much through the pandemic. I know it was very difficult going home after finally getting to Olivet, thinking, God, what are you doing? Because this was the perfect time and now we're all going home. And I think what I learned through that was God's still with us in the difficulty. And it's just about trust. Trust Him with your time, which then, in my mind, kind of results in trusting Him with everything.
How do you see God using your art ability in the next 5 and maybe the next 10 years?
So I want to open a coffee shop, and I want it to be a way to get into the community. But with this coffee shop, I want it to be a gallery that not only I can hang my artwork in, but also be open for others to hang theirs in. So it's not really about what, well, it's not about what I can do. It's what God can do through it. And to me, it's not even about the artwork. It's about people's lives and how God's able to use anything. I mean, I think what excites me the most is the fact that I can look down at my hands and know that I can build God's kingdom with this. And I can do that by drawing, by hanging something up, by taking someone else's piece and hanging it up and starting to build a relationship with them.
I want to know which one you are going to gift your mother.
Whichever one she wants.
Mary, so your work is obviously reflecting on relationship, and you gave us that analogy of a thread and how it interacts and becomes part of a larger picture of a quilt or embroidery. And yet you're framing this body of work larger in a larger way with the concept of time. And you've touched on that a little bit tonight, but can you speak a little bit more on why you chose to think about it with that emphasis of the passage of time and how that's related to relationship a little bit more, and maybe specifically why you began thinking about time and wanting to present it?
I think that just goes back to what I talked about, God's perfect time, and what we do with our time, what we spend it doing, who we spend it with. It really and truly affects who we are. So it's about stories, and that's where a relationship comes in. It's about stories. It's how we live. So I think that's my simple answer for that. But yeah.
Right, a loud car going by. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea of thinking about narrative. I mean, your works definitely tell a story. And what's interesting about your pieces is that they can tell a different story to different people because they're so layered. People are going to see different things in them. I think that's also interesting and can connect to that idea of relationship and interaction as well. And when did you start developing this thought process about time and relationship?
That's something I've always held dear. I've had to wait a lot in my life for various things. So it's something I've always held near and dear. So right away I knew what I wanted to do. It's not something I even had to think about. It was like, that's it.
Thank you.
Mary, I think God has already used you with this work and this collection. You've been a real encourager for all of us, professors and students. You always have a bright, optimistic thing to say. It's not rose-colored glasses. You're definitely grounded and rooted in reality. But I think your faith just comes out in really positive expressions and really makes the room brighter. As you really focus on your work and challenge yourself. So I think has already been using you here in the department, in the classes, and I know God will continue to use you in creative ways.
Thank you.
Mary, do all of your pictures, is the composite all 5 pictures put together?
No, it's anywhere between 5 and 12. So, for example, my dad knows this because he's part of my family. I have a very large family. So, this photo has a lot more images than the others simply because I have 6 siblings and plus my parents. So, this one is called They Are Me, talking about how they're my flesh and blood, as compared to a different one called They Are Mine, to refer to friends. Both belong to me, but one is blood related. So yeah, this one has a lot of images in it.
I have a similar question, but it's more on the lines of what determines in your mind how many photos you put together? So I know with these ones you said that you put like friends and family, but do you come into like an art piece like this and already have an idea of how many pictures you're going to put together, or is it just kind of like I want to I don't know, but what does that look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for some of them, yes. So what's a good example here? I'm gonna go back to the one called Sit Down. This one, I wasn't necessarily counting how many, but I knew there were, 5 or 6 specific places that I always found myself sitting down. So that's how I came up with that number was, these 5 places are where I typically go. I don't think there's really a rhyme or reason to specifically how many, except that I know I don't want to go above 12. Just because it's a lot.
Well, now you have to go above 12 just to try it out.
Fair.
I've actually noticed that you refer to them as photographs. How connected, since you go through this process of taking a photograph, making a line drawing, layering those together. I guess at what point would you not consider them photographs, or is there a connection? How married are you to the idea of photography versus illustration? I was just curious your thoughts on that.
I think I've just come to use photos as synonymous with images. I'm not necessarily tied to one or the other. I didn't even notice I kept saying photos. But yeah, I mean, photos are part of my process though, because I do take pictures with my phone and then I use those as reference photos to create my line drawings and create an image out of them, to use the term correctly. I don't think I'm too terribly married to the idea of photos, but yeah, that wasn't on purpose.
Mary, so since we're talking about medium, can you speak a little bit about how you might see this process continuing in your art making and maybe other mediums you might be exploring?
I can. In Prof Co's, it's a painting class I'm taking this semester. I'm using this process for acrylic paints. And I'm making a transition piece. So I'm wanting to continue this process in a sense, referring to the layering, but I'm using it with acrylics. And so I'm using water to water down my paints to create that transparency, or I'm using a matte medium that also does the same thing, or white transparent tape, not tape, paint, or a mix of some. And I'm trying to figure it out right now. But yeah, I'm using the same process in painting right now. And I'm very excited about it.
Doing that with painting sounds way, way scarier because once you do it, you can't go back. Whereas with the digital, you can, oh, never mind, undo. I was going to ask you, because you've done so many different kinds of art through the years, why did you decide to go focus on this digital route versus the other kinds of things you had messed with growing up?
Yeah. I think there's several factors with that one. One was when I came in and saw that I got to get an iPad for the art department. I played around with it a lot because of the convenience of being able to take it wherever I go. There's no cleanup. Not that I don't like cleaning up, but it's not something that I have to build in a lot of time for. I can take 5 minutes, sit down, draw something real quick, come back to it later, and it's not, nothing is ruined like dry paint or anything like that. I did notice this year, I was cleaning out my computer and noticed that I used to get on, I don't know if anyone remembers it, but on the old PCs, the application called Paint. And I used to get on there all the time and create these things. I made a semi truck one time. That's the photo I found. No idea why, but I found that I used to use digital stuff all the time. Didn't even realize it. So I just enjoy it. It's good.
Mary, I think we'll have to wrap up here, and you've done a great job of walking us through your thought process and your creative process. Thank you for being, always prepared and ready to go. This has been a wonderful artist talk for us, and want to say thanks for everybody who's coming out and contributed. Even if you didn't say anything, we still know you're here, and that means a lot, to our students and to us as a faculty. Mary, these are always sad because what that means is the student is like moving on and just graduating in just a few weeks. So you'll definitely be missed here. And we want to give you the last word, and then we'll move over to our next senior. So maybe just a minute or two, and then we'll conclude.
Thank you all so much for coming. As the whole concept is, you all have had an impact on my life, and your support means more than you know. So thank you all so much for coming. And yeah, if you get a chance to come check it out, come check it out, and let me know your thoughts. Thanks, guys.